Sorry for my very, very bad impression of William Friedkin. I am a big fan of his films. I really am. I am a really big fan of the works directed by the great William Friedkin. Of course, there is the classic film The French Connection, and here I have the two Blu-ray releases, or two of the Blu-ray releases that occurred several years back. The masterpiece work, The Exorcist, a recent Arrow release of a film, Cruising, starring Al Pacino. There's, of course, this film, which is To Live and Die in LA, which is a bona fide masterpiece. Then, of course, there are key works like Bug with Michael Shannon and Ashley Judd, and one of the late great works of his career, Killer Joe, which is so chilling, so disturbing. There are, of course, other films in his filmography that have been getting a lot of great attention on physical media lately, such as, for example, The Brink's Job. Earlier films like, for instance, The Night They Raided Minsky's and The Boys in the Band, and also Sonny and Cher in Good Times, and also a film with Robert Shaw called The Birthday Party. I was also so thrilled to get a recent release from the fine team over at Vinegar Syndrome, their release of Jade, which is a really wild erotic thriller. And then we have a great horror film, which I hope will get more reappraisal as the years pass, which is the film The Guardian. This is another wild film. I also happen to have the DVD of The Guardian, which has the great William Friedkin commentary track. Unfortunately, the Blu-ray from Scream Factory does not include the commentary track, but the older DVD does. So if you can find that older DVD, that's really great. There are other films like Nick Nolte in Blue Chips. We owe him the money. Chevy Chase, Deal of the Century from the 80s. And I have the Kino Lorber 4K of 12 Angry Men. This is good because it has, as one of the supplements, the TV movie version of 12 Angry Men directed by William Friedkin, starring, among other people, Jack Lemmon and George C. Scott. Oh, it's really great. And then, of course, there is the Criterion release of Sorcerer, which happened earlier in the year 2025. And at the moment, I have on order, and it should be coming this month, I have at Kino Lorber, I just ordered Rules of Engagement and The Hunted, both on 4K. So Kino Lorber is releasing the film Rampage, which is long overdue. And of course, there are many others that he did, many documentaries that he did. He did some TV shows, Alfred Hitchcock Hour, the Twilight Zone series from the 1980s, the episode Night Crawlers, which is a classic in that series, and many other works, of course. I've been a fan since I was very young. So when Criterion released Sorcerer earlier in the year, I was so overcome with joy. It was so exciting. And also, one of the things I love to watch on YouTube, I love to watch any William Friedkin interview I can find on YouTube, and there are so many, just to hear him speak about film and his love and care and attention and all the stories that he had about cinema. You've got to check out that interview he did talking about his favorite films of all time. And he speaks, among other things, about discovering the film Citizen Kane for the first time when he was very young. He said he went to a movie theater in Chicago called, I think, the Surf Theater, and he went to see Citizen Kane on the recommendation of a friend whose judgment he trusted. And when he went at an early screening that day, he stayed until midnight and watched it many, many times over. And he knew at that point that this was what he wanted to do with his life. He saw Citizen Kane and he decided, that's what I wanted to do. What an inspiring story. And of course, later you hear him speak on these various places like the AFI Greatest Films of All Time specials, where he talks about Citizen Kane, among other films. So here's the Citizen Kane released from Criterion. Sorry for my very, very bad impression of William Friedkin. I am a big fan of his films. I really am. Citizen Kane is the Mount Everest of filmmaking. That is the summit. Citizen Kane is the Mount Everest.
That's the absolute summit, Citizen Kane. that's the Mount Everest of filmmaking, and I don't think anything is on that level.
And of course, you hear him speak so lovingly about the European classics that he cites as being major inspirations for him. I saw films by Alain Resnais and Michelangelo Antonioni, Fellini, 8½. When I made a film called The French Connection, I was working with an actor named Gene Hackman, and I told him to drive. And I saw a film by Costa Gavras called Z. I knew that was the way in which I could shoot The French Connection.
There's a French film called Z, or Z, which was directed by a man called Costa Gavras. And after I saw Z, I realized how I could shoot The French Connection.
Z is in the Criterion Collection on a DVD. I also have the book that he wrote, The Friedkin Connection. I have that on an audiobook as well. I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks, to be perfectly honest, but one of the few audiobooks that I love to listen to is William Friedkin's The Friedkin Connection, because you actually hear him, Friedkin himself, read from his book, and it is a joy to listen to him talking about his life and making various films. For example, he talks about making To Live and Die in LA. He talks about making The Exorcist. We had to shoot a part of the film in Iraq, and it was very difficult, capturing the essence of the battle between Father Marin and a demon called Pazuzu. There's, of course, the very famous interview or the discussion he had with Nicholas Winding Refn, which is also included on the Criterion release of Sorcerer as a supplement. Excuse me, is there a doctor in the house?
Oh, I'm like you. I have no regrets about Only God Forgives. I think it's a masterpiece, and it is. I just didn't make it very expensive.
Is there a doctor in the house? We need to get a medic in here. Is there a doctor around?
There's also a separate interview where he talks about Cruising, which is a very, very complex film, and this Arrow release is absolutely splendid. And there's an interview you can find on YouTube where he's asked about Al Pacino, and he says, I don't give a flying off a rolling donut what Al Pacino thinks. Okay?
Pacino felt dispossessed of he felt as he had lost the
I don't
character.
give a flying into a rolling donut about what Al Pacino thinks. Is that an answer to your question, Greg?
Yeah.
William Friedkin. It's great to see his films. It's great to see a film like Sorcerer in the Criterion Collection.